occasional lunch breaks spent at the park near her office. Earlier in the day of her disappearance, she handled her usual end-of-month audit at work, a task she preferred to get done without distractions. She stopped at the pharmacy for her father's medication, ate a quick meal at home, and then headed out to Crestline Market to restock groceries for the week. It was an ordinary Tuesday in her life. Nothing unusual, nothing out of routine, nothing that hinted at danger waiting in a nearly empty parking lot. While Claire followed her weekly habits, a man named Evan Reddick moved through his day with no routine at all. Evan was 41, recently fired from an equipment rental company for theft and erratic behavior. His temper got him written up repeatedly, and his refusal to return company property, especially a white cargo van, became one of the reasons his boss finally cut ties with him. When he lost the job, he lost almost everything that kept him financially afloat. That same van became his only stable possession. He spent the afternoon driving around Maplewoods Industrial District, parking behind empty warehouses and idle trucks, trying to figure out how to pull together money he didn't have. A hardware store camera caught him earlier that day buying rope, zip ties, gloves, and a roll of heavy tape. He moved through the aisles with purpose, selecting the items quietly, paying in cash, and leaving without drawing attention. No one knew where he went after that, but a convenience store camera picked him up again around 7 p.m., parked outside, eating a microwave burrito in the driver's seat of the van. He stayed there for nearly an hour before circling toward the Crestline area and eventually pulling into the grocery store lot. At that point, he had no real plan, just frustration, debt, and a growing desperation that turned his attention toward the woman who walked out of the store at the wrong moment. Claire's last hours played out predictably. She left work at 5:47 p.m. after finishing her audit and locked up the supply room behind her. She drove to the pharmacy on Miller Avenue, filled her father's medication, and then stopped at home long enough to change into comfortable clothes. Her townhouse's door camera recorded her leaving again at 8:56 p.m., grocery list tucked in her purse. Inside Crestline Market, she moved slowly through the aisles, comparing prices and checking the recipe she planned to try that weekend. Store cameras showed her picking up produce, choosing a few canned goods, and grabbing items from the frozen section. She wasn't in a rush. She was just finishing a quiet evening errand like she had done thousands of times before. At 9:10 p.m., she paid for her groceries, placed the receipt in her bag, and walked toward the exit. The last moment of her normal life was the automated doors sliding open in front of her. Outside those doors, life continued on schedule. 2 clerks collected carts. The night manager locked the entrance. A few customers backed out of spaces and headed home. Nothing about the scene suggested that the danger waiting in the parking lot had already chosen her. Evan pulled into the Crestline parking lot a few minutes before Claire left the store. The van remained in the back corner at first, positioned behind a row of empty spaces. He sat behind the wheel, watching customers filter out. The engine stayed running while he surveyed the lot, scanning faces and studying who walked out alone. When he saw Claire appear through the glass doors near checkout, something in his expression changed. He turned off the engine, waited, then started the vehicle again and eased forward. Instead of parking in any of the dozens of open spots closer to the exit, he drove directly to the space beside her hatchback. He didn't step out. He didn't move. He sat still behind the tinted window, watching as she walked across the asphalt with her grocery cart. The van's headlights stayed off. The side door stayed closed. His posture didn't shift until she lifted her trunk and began loading her bags. Only then did his hand reach for the inside handle of the van's sliding door. Claire finished placing one of the last bags in the trunk. She reached for her keys to unlock the back seat, planning to move a case of water inside. She never saw Evan step out of the van or approach the narrow space between the two vehicles. There was no warning, no sound that drew her attention. The door of the van slid open and she was grabbed before she could turn around. Her keys fell to the ground, landing near the wheel of her car. The trunk stayed open behind her, frozen mid-air. The struggle lasted seconds, mostly hidden in the narrow gap between the hatchback and the van. The cargo door slammed shut with a force that echoed across the lot. Evan climbed into the driver's seat, started the van, and backed out, leaving Claire's car open and untouched under the parking lot lights. He drove off without turning on the headlights. Inside the van, Claire was restrained with the zip ties Evan had prepared earlier. The old interior camera that the rental company had installed years ago was still attached to the ceiling, its lens cracked, but functional enough to capture fragments of what happened. Later, when police recovered the footage, they'd see blurred images of her struggling, her wrists bound, her mouth covered, and Evan driving with tense, hurried movements. He took her to an abandoned irrigation warehouse on the edge of town, a place where he'd spent time before when he wanted to be away from the public eye. The warehouse office was small, cluttered with old filing cabinets and metal desks. Evan pulled her inside and forced her to sit in a rolling chair, demanding the PIN numbers to her bank cards and phone. When the numbers didn't work at the ATM he later tried, frustration consumed him. The argument in the office escalated. Claire attempted to plead with him, but he hit her with enough force to knock her unconscious. A blunt force injury to the head ended her life not long after. Evan dragged her body into a storage closet filled with old tarps and irrigation supplies and covered her with whatever he could find. The warehouse went silent again once he left, as if nothing had happened. Evan returned to the van and drove back toward Crestline Market, parking Claire's hatchback several streets away in a quiet residential area. He locked it, wiped down the inside surfaces, and walked back to the van. He then drove to an ATM near a laundromat and attempted to use her card again, but the PIN numbers failed. He tried twice more before giving up. Afterward, he headed home to his duplex. He parked the van behind the building, covering the license plate with a piece of cardboard and a strip of duct tape. He threw Claire's phone into a plastic bin behind his building, planning to sort through it later. By dawn, he was asleep in his bedroom, as if his night had been ordinary. The warehouse stayed quiet, the van stayed parked, and Claire remained hidden beneath tarps in the storage closet, far from anyone who might have helped her. The first sign that something was wrong came early the next morning when Claire didn't sign into work. She had never missed a shift without warning. Her manager checked her schedule, assuming maybe she had requested the day off, but her name was clearly listed for a morning audit. After 10 minutes with no answer to calls or texts, he tried reaching her brother, Damien. Damien immediately knew something was off. Claire always responded quickly, even if she was busy. He tried calling her 5 more times while driving to her townhouse. Her car wasn't in the driveway. The blinds were closed and the walkway light was still on from the night before. He knocked repeatedly, called out her name, and circled the building to see if maybe she had left a note or light on inside. By early afternoon, he called the Maplewood Police Department to request a welfare check. Officers arrived within 20 minutes, entered the townhouse with Damien's permission, and found no indication she had slept there or come home at all the previous night. The refrigerator was stocked, the mail looked untouched, and the bed was neatly made. Her purse was missing, and so were her keys, suggesting she had left with the intention of returning shortly. When her father's nurse called Damien asking why Claire hadn't dropped off his medication that morning like she promised, the fear escalated into something more serious. Claire never failed family commitments. Damien knew then that she wasn't just late or distracted. Something had happened. Police ran her license plate through the city's automated recognition system and received a hit less than an hour later. Claire's hatchback had been located on a residential street 8 blocks from Crestline Market. Officers found the car parked legally on the curb, locked with nothing outwardly damaged. The doors were clean, the windows intact, and her bag wasn't visible on the seats. But something about the placement felt wrong. Claire never parked randomly. She wouldn't have left her car in a neighborhood she had no reason to visit. A nearby doorbell camera had picked up footage around 2:13 a.m., showing a man exiting the passenger side of the hatchback and walking away quickly. The clip lasted only a few seconds, but it proved Claire wasn't the one who parked it. Police towed the car to the forensic garage and logged it as evidence. By the end of the day, her case was upgraded from welfare check to missing under suspicious circumstances. Officers returned to Crestline Market and spoke with the night manager, who reviewed the camera footage with them. When they reached the segment around 9:12 p.m., the room went silent. The video clearly showed Claire loading her groceries, the cargo van parked inches from her car, and a man grabbing her before pulling her out of sight. It was now officially an abduction case. Detectives began gathering every camera angle around the grocery store. The footage showed Claire entering the store at 8:59 p.m. and checking out at 9:10 p.m. They traced her walk across the lot and watched as she reached her car. From a pole-mounted camera near the traffic light, they captured the van turning onto Ridgeway Drive without headlights. A gas station camera a few blocks away caught the van again, briefly illuminated by passing headlights, revealing a dented rear panel distinctive enough to track. Detectives then matched the van's plate to the equipment rental company, prompting a call to its owner. The owner reported the vehicle had never been returned by their former employee, Evan Reddick. The company shared his termination file, his photo, and the details of his stolen van. Officers compared his photograph to the grainy figure seen in the parking lot footage and agreed it was consistent with the same build and posture. Further surveillance revealed the van entering the industrial district at 9:34 p.m. The irrigation warehouse's security camera recorded it pulling up to the loading dock and leaving at 10:21 p.m. The timestamp matched the window when Claire vanished. With the van identified, the suspect named, and the route mapped, the timeline was complete. Investigators had everything except Claire herself. Once detectives officially connected the vehicle to Evan Reddick, his background became crucial. His employer confirmed he'd been fired after multiple incidents of theft and volatile behavior. They reported he had refused to return the company van and that he'd been seen arguing with customers in the weeks before his termination. His HR file showed patterns of anger, financial trouble, and unpredictable behavior. Detectives printed still images from several camera angles. The blurry view of the man grabbing Claire, the profile shot of him climbing into the driver's seat, and the near-clear image of the van passing the gas station. Those images circulated to patrol units, nearby jurisdictions, and state databases. Tips began coming in within hours. Several citizens reported seeing a van matching that description parked behind a duplex on East Valley Road. One tip came from a neighbor who said the man living there frequently covered his license plate with cardboard. That was enough for detectives to set up surveillance. Unmarked vehicles positioned themselves around Evan's duplex early the next morning. Officers observed the van behind the building, partially hidden behind a wooden fence. A piece of cardboard hung over the rear plate, secured with duct tape exactly as described. They watched as Evan stepped out of the duplex carrying a duffel bag, glanced around the alley, and headed toward the van. The moment he climbed inside, officers boxed him in. He tried to start the engine, but the alley was blocked at both ends. He surrendered quickly, raising his hands as detectives approached the driver's side window. Inside the van, officers found Claire's phone under the passenger seat, her grocery receipt crumpled in the cup holder, and a pair of used zip ties on the floor. When detectives questioned Evan about Claire, he claimed not to know her. His story changed twice before he stopped speaking altogether. After obtaining a warrant for the irrigation warehouse, officers found the office unlocked and the storage closet partially blocked by a stack of dusty irrigation filters. Behind them, they located Claire's body beneath two heavy tarps. The crime scene was now confirmed. Forensic teams examined the warehouse office, collecting fingerprints from a metal filing cabinet, the edge of a desk, and the chair where Claire had been restrained. Evan's prints appeared in multiple locations. The office carpet held traces of dried blood matching Claire through DNA testing. In the van, officers found additional DNA evidence consistent with her being transported inside it. The autopsy confirmed that Claire died from blunt force trauma to the head. The medical examiner reported bruising around the wrist consistent with restraint and estimated the time of death to be between 10 p.m. and 10:15 p.m. on the night of her disappearance. There were no signs she survived long after the attack. Her injuries lined up with the chaotic confrontation investigators believed took place in the warehouse office. Confirmation of her cause of death removed any remaining uncertainty. This was a homicide committed within hours of her abduction. During his formal interview, Evan attempted to deny involvement, insisting he didn't know who Claire was and had never seen her car. Detectives showed him the grocery store footage, the warehouse camera images, and the ATM clips linking him to her cards. Once confronted with the evidence, he admitted he panicked when he saw her in the parking lot and made a bad decision. He claimed he only meant to take her cards and force her to give him access to her accounts. When detectives questioned him about the warehouse, he said she got scared and fought back, then claimed he hit her one time before things got out of control. He refused to provide further detail, but he acknowledged attacking her after the PIN numbers he demanded did not work. His motive was money. He was broke, angry, and looking for someone he perceived as vulnerable. Claire happened to be the person he followed that night. After that, he stopped answering questions. Prosecutors charged Evan with kidnapping, felony murder, attempted extortion, and abuse of a corpse. The trial moved quickly since the evidence was overwhelming. Jurors saw the grocery store footage, the gas station clip, and the warehouse video placing Evan at the scene with Claire. Forensic reports confirmed DNA, fingerprints, and the exact series of events that led to her death. Evan's defense team attempted to argue diminished capacity due to financial stress, but the court rejected that angle. After deliberating for less than 4 hours, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all major charges. Evan Reddick was sentenced to 52 years in state prison, with eligibility for parole after 38 years. The van was impounded, the warehouse condemned, and the evidence archived. Maplewood closed one of its most disturbing abduction cases in recent memory. Claire Dalton was a quiet, organized woman who followed a simple weekly routine and made a late grocery run after finishing errands for her family. Parking beside a van in an empty lot placed her in the path of a desperate man who chose her at random, and she never made it home after an errand she had done countless times before. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, like, and share, and stay tuned for more stories.